All right, and we are live. This is Jason Hull here with the DoorGrow show, and hopefully this is streaming out to a couple of other channels right now. We've got a special guest with us here today, Todd Breen. Todd, introduce yourself. Say hello.
Jason, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been hanging out in the property management circles for my entire life and doing some fun stuff with outsourcing lately. Love to talk with you about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, and you're very, astute and familiar with the outsourcing stuff, running your company. And I'd love to get started by getting a little bit of background on you for the listeners and the people viewing this. How did you get into doing outsourcing? How did this kind of become a thing for you? Because not everybody does it.
No, it's been a kind of a fun journey, but I was managing property for my entire adult life, and when I bought my management company from my dad, I'm second gen. I bought it back in '93. By '94, I would have sold it really cheap because I was burned out on property management. I wasn't having fun and I wasn't making any money or profit. And so I said, I'm going to make property management fun and profitable or I'm out. And so since '94, that's been my quest. And, outsourcing hits both. It makes property management more fun and it makes it more profitable. And so it was just a natural thing for me to say, I'm after this. I'm going after this. And, now we've got over 100 virtual assistants working for us and growing rapidly. And it's really exciting when we can do what's worked at my property management company, which is our incubator, and bring it to other managers so that they can get back to fun and profitable.
And I think that's kind of the advantage you've had is that you had this property management business, you had needs within it, and you were creating your own solution. And
I am
just a natural fit to do it for other people.
Yeah, and I'm actually in Manila right now. I spend a couple months here twice a year, so it works out great. Where I still operate my management company back home in Florida, and here I am in Manila. We just had our annual staff retreat and leadership retreats, and we're growing our team here and really having a lot of fun helping property managers.
So what time is it? So it's kind of almost noon. It's 11 o'clock here in Pacific time in California where I'm at. What time is it there for everybody listening?
It is. It's 2 a.m. and which is not a big deal to me because I'm a night owl anyways. And wow. So I work from about 9 p.m. until maybe 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes. And then I'm off for a while and back at it again.
Oh man, I'm the early bird. That's definitely my thing. So I'm up super early and then I'm trying to get to bed by 10. All right, cool. So well, I appreciate you being on with us at 2 in the morning. And so let's get into this idea of outsourcing, because I think one of the common mistakes, and we were talking about this a little bit in Green Room, but one of the common mistakes that I see property managers fall into is that one, they think of themselves, these business owners think of themselves as the property manager. That's challenge number one that I see. They think I'm the one that needs to coordinate maintenance. I'm the one that needs to answer phones. They try to do everything. Initially starting out, that's where every entrepreneur starts. They're Atlas holding the whole world right on their shoulders, and they're trying to do everything. And then eventually they realize they can't do it all. They get to maybe about 50, 60 doors. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm tapped out. They're starting to feel the burn. They need to hire somebody, they think. And the first default everybody seems to go to is, I'm going to go drop, tens of thousands of dollars annually on a new employee. And you're here to say there's probably a better option to start with, right?
Very much so. And, whenever we're talking with someone who's interested in outsourcing, one of the first questions we have is, what size company are you? And the 0 to 150 doors,
Mm-hmm.
we know we're dealing with mom and pop-itis. We know we're talking with someone who's an owner operator who and some people are thrilled to stay there. Hey man, I really want to grow and scale. And as soon as we find out what size they are and what package, and I have
just a little
pleasure of knowing, using, being friends with many of the other outsourcing companies that span the property management industry. So I'm very familiar with not only what we do to outsource, but also all the other solutions, because I have them at my management company. And it's a great conversation to have with a property manager to say, let's start with, where do you think are your weak spots? Where is your customer service lacking? Surveyed your owners and tenants, what would they tell us? Most people start to get a little bit shy when you start talking, because we all want to put this image forward that we're doing great and we're rock stars. But the truth of the matter, if we asked our owners and tenants, or even if we asked our own staff, where's our weak spots? The answers are glaring, and they're almost. And that's where we can really start to go in and say, okay, what can we do to bring in outside help that can help in these weak spots? And so, at my management, maintenance has been a routine weak spot over 30 years. And we get on top of it, we trickle back down again, and then we're not on top of it. Our average work order terms are going real strong, and then they start to fail. And sometimes we have average turnover times that are longer than a week, and that's not good customer service. So we made the decision recently to just outsource all of our maintenance to one of the companies that does property management maintenance, and we're thrilled because they're specialists and they're staffed right and they're 24/7, and they're a much better job at it than I can. And people say, that's crazy. Why are you outsourcing firm when you have one of the largest outsourcing firms? And I say, well, I don't do maintenance, and I don't want to do maintenance. I'm not a specialist at it. I don't want to start from scratch. I want to take the collective genius of companies that were started by other property managers to outsource, and I want to use those.
And that makes
a ton of sense. Are we live?
Yeah. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me, Todd?
I think I am hung up. I'm going to switch internet in case. I can't hear you, and I don't know why. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Here we go.
All right, we'll see if Todd comes back on here, and we get reconnected. All right, and those of you watching this live over here in Crowdcast, can you hear and see me? I'll refresh just in case too.
I can hear you. I'm fine. I can hear you. All right, I'm back. If everyone can hear me, RSB.
All right.
All right.
Cool. I did a refresh too, just in case. So, all right.
Okay.
All right. I can hear you. You can hear me and see me. Okay, cool. Yeah. So what I was saying is, I think that's awesome. So what you're saying is, not people think, oh, I'm going to outsource, and if I find the right firm, they do everything, and that's generally never going to be the case, right? So what you're saying is, to do outsourcing effectively, You want to find somebody that has systems, processes geared towards this specific task that you're looking to have done, and they can do it better than you. They have more team members than you, and they've been dialing in their systems and processes in that niche, in that area for a while. That could be maintenance. It could be on the leasing side. It could be on, on video marketing. It could be on just about anything. And
exactly.
And that's
and it's dialing into that collective genius, because like at our outsourcing, we do the leasing lines. It's one of our biggest things, and so I've been leasing property for 33 years. So I bring my best practices and my experience to any other management company that needs to do it. But then collectively, we answer the calls for hundreds of others of management companies.
Yeah.
And we know how collectively we've learned from other people best practices, and we just keep on improving what we offer. And so flip of the switch, somebody can have access to that. And that's why I'm like, I don't want to do that with maintenance. I'm up to here just doing what I'm doing already. Yeah. And other people smarter than me have figured out how to do maintenance better than I ever will. So I'll use them. And it works out great for us.
So let's talk about some of the different areas that people might, because maybe they're not aware what could be outsourced. So we've mentioned maintenance, maybe maintenance coordination, maintenance phone calls, that sort of thing, receiving that. Then you've also touched a little bit on leasing. Maybe you can go into a little detail about that, but then there might be some other areas.
So why I chose to outsource leasing is a cool story. I did a real simple analysis. I said, okay, how many calls do we get on our vacancies? Like how many prospective tenants are calling, and then how many emails do we get? And then I divided the number of leases that we write every month into the lead volume that we get. And can you guess what percentage of leads we closed to fill our 5 or 10 or whatever vacancies every month? Can you guess?
No, you tell me.
1%.
That's it.
So that means out of 100 people that I talk to at my management company, I monetize 1%, 1 out of 100. That means 99% of the time, money, and effort that I spend on the phone or responding to emails, it's time lost, it's time wasted. I don't monetize it. So I was like, oh my gosh. And then the other thing is if you look at your call volume at your company, most likely 60% of your calls are on your leasing. Yeah. People with leasing inquiries. So 60% of the calls are generating no revenue for you, except for that 1% that it takes to fill your vacancies.
Right.
It's this enormous time waster that doesn't yield money for me. And I said, man, I got to get smart people handling those calls for me so I can focus on something else. Then you start looking at, okay, how good a job does the average management company do on answering their leasing calls? And the answer is, they suck.
Right.
And I was at the top of the we suck list, which is why I started outsourcing my calls, because people would call and they get a voicemail for the agent because the agent put their cell phone number in the listing, and the agent was at their kid's ball game, or the agent was on another call or in an appointment, and so they get a voicemail. That's not good customer service. And when we start to think it is, we're kidding ourselves. So
yeah,
it was a no-brainer for me to do that. And that was kind of like the biggest bang for the buck I could give my own management company. And then to me, I think maintenance is another customer service sore spot for a lot of companies.
Oh, yeah.
If you ask yourself, am I doing a 1-week turnaround on the average work order or less? And if the answer is no, then maybe there's complacency, or you don't even know what your average turnaround is, but your tenants know, because they're calling you to say, can you fix the house? And if you're not getting on it very quickly, or that they have to call repetitively, then their experience with you isn't good. You get poor reviews, lower renewal rate. It's a trickle down disaster.
Yeah.
And so, these are why I chose to outsource at my management company. We're also looking to outsource the majority of our payables, receivables in the bookkeeping function, because we can. Why not? And there's companies that are specialists at that we can use. And I'm excited about that opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
so, so I think between leasing and maintenance, if most of these mom and pop property managers could get those two pieces, at least a large portion of that, lifted off their plate, that is the bulk of where they think their time should be spent right now. And if they can eliminate that, they can now start to focus on actually building their business. They can start focusing on what some would call strategic stuff in their business, instead of doing tactical work. And if, as a business owner, you're doing tactical,
okay, Jason, you hung up.
Or did I lose you, Todd?
Internet is still strong.
I don't know. I still can hear you. Are you still with me? I'll try refreshing again here.
All right.
All right. Can you hear me now? Todd, are you there? All right. If you guys can, if RSB and anybody else in here, can you see and hear me? Let's make sure you guys are still with me. We'll edit these gaps out on the podcast version, but all right. Brad, you can hear me? All right. It says Todd's reconnecting. All right, cool.
All right. Hello, hello.
Okay, I hear you again. Do you hear and see me?
Yeah, I switched internet providers, so hopefully that'll solve it.
Okay, we'll see. It's always a little weird. I mean, I'm sure that the servers we're running on right now are in the US, and so it might be a little sketchy trying to reach. So we'll see. But
yeah.
So what I was saying is you were talking about how payables and accounts receivables and these different channels for outsourcing. So, and then I was touching on, if we can, as entrepreneurs, if we can take those things that that tactically are taking up our time, tactical level work, and we can eliminate that as much as possible off our plate, that allows us and frees us up to focus on strategic work. And most property managers, if you take a look at your day and you actually do a time study, you'll find that the bulk of your time is not strategic work. You're not strategizing. You're not figuring out how you can grow your business. You're not thinking of how you can support your staff, how you can improve things and processes. A lot of your time gets caught up on doing maintenance coordination, doing accounting related stuff, doing the tasks that really are lower level tasks that you could be giving to or should be giving to somebody else. And that requires an entrepreneur to be willing to give up a certain level of control, doesn't it? Doesn't that feel unsafe for people initially? They want to control everything.
Yeah, you know, when we talk with people and ask a few questions and find out that we're dealing with a control freak. And by the way, I'm a control freak in remission,
Yes. Okay.
in recovery.
Right.
Then you know, that's a real easy conversation to say. You know, you can control everything to a certain volume, and then you will hit a ceiling. And so, do you want to go past that ceiling, or do you want to keep controlling everything? And you know, that's up for them to decide. And so, my ceiling was 150 doors. I used to manage that solo, and I did that for a number of years. Very profitable. Kind of like Steve Crossland. You know, he's very profitable managing a certain set number of doors, and I can identify with him because I did that for a number of years, and it was great for me. I loved it. Then I decided that I wanted to scale and remove myself. And so I had to, first thing I had to do was let go of control freak. And so I did what I always do, found a course or two on it and learned how to, you know, take some deep breaths and figure out how to move on from there. And it was very, very good for me. Right. And you know what, you touched on something I want to talk about. The average management company owner is so busy in the minutia that they don't do the strategic things. But it's more than that. This business is not terribly profitable unless you are an expert at, you know, fee maximization, or unless you have scale to a certain size and you're running at peak efficiency. So what ends up happening is most management company owners think, I can't really afford, you know, the latest website that I saw, you know, on the door hacker seed package, that, you know, it's, and people are saying this is a great deal, and they say I can't afford it. And I'm saying, you know, as soon as you learn how to outsource properly, you free up not only time, but you free up money and resources, and then you can reinvest that into growing your business. And I love it. I've had the honor of working with a number of businesses in a coaching role. And some of these businesses are growing at, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40 doors a month. And they're doing exactly that. They're saying, okay, source things to the lowest cost solution, and then take the savings and invest it into a business development manager, somebody whose full-time job it is to grow the management company. And when I see that happen, I just smile and I say, they get it. They were able to successfully, you know, divest from having to do it a certain way in-house to opening it up and saying, let's expand our model. Let's bring in lower cost solutions and invest the savings. And those people are crushing it. It's great to see.
Yeah, it's interesting that the things that provide you money and facilitate growth are the things that, you know, cost money to do. And so a lot of people avoid taking the steps that they need to take. And I think there's also a shyness, because I've talked to countless property managers that they've done what they heard somebody say to do. Like they're like people are telling me to go do this or to go do that, and they try it and it doesn't work, and then they're frustrated. And so usually by the time they reach out to DoorGrow, they're really gun shy and they're really skeptical. And so then I'm having to say, well, here's how this is different, and get them moving forward. But the great thing I love about entrepreneurs is that if they have a clear direction to head in and they believe in it, you can't stop them. They're going to do it. So the challenge is property managers just need to believe that outsourcing is a viable option for them. And so let's talk about the fear that surrounds that. So what typically prevents people from doing outsourcing? I think one of the big fears is probably quality. They're like, oh, well, if I outsource it, they're not going to care as much as me, or it's not going to be as good, or something along these lines. Maybe we can crush that a little bit.
And, you know, fear stands for false evidence appearing real, right? And so in my own instance, I used to think as soon as I don't do it, the quality goes down. But then the quality of my life was not all that good. I was working 60, 70 plus hours a week. So, you know, my customers had quality, I didn't. And when you get to the point where you say, I'm done with that, that's when things happen. And I got to the point where I said, I'm done with that. And things happen. So, you know, I teach a course called Run Your rent roll from under a palm tree. And I made a list of things I wanted to do in my life, and 70 hours a week at a management company was not high on that list.
Yeah, it wasn't top.
And so, when we decide that we're going to expand our thought process and our options, then we make room for that to happen. So usually, when I talk to somebody who's either a workaholic or overworked, and I'm never sure which it is, then I say, what can we do to help you? And their fear is, okay, if I give this to you, it's not going to be done right. And the truth of the matter is, a property management reseller, which is what we are, we don't just give you a virtual assistant and say, you manage this person. We actually have a whole system and we resell. We're going to bring our systems, processes, quality assurance, and et cetera, our training into play. And so, we have simple questions. We're like, okay, your leasing agents, do they have fair housing training certifications? Yeah, they do. Or no, they don't. Well, ours do. How many calls a week do you listen to your leasing agents or your receptionist or whoever's answering your leasing lines? How many times a week does somebody in authority listen in on the calls and then coach?
Probably none.
Oh, yeah, we don't do that. Well, we do. So we know we're getting a specific output at the end of each call, and it's being handled the right way. Do you have a process for escalation if someone's upset? Is it in writing? Is it QA'd and tested? Quality assurance and tested? Well, no, we don't have that. So the people who have this false evidence appearing real, this fear factor, may be surprised when they learn that by letting go, they're actually opening up for a better way of doing things at their business. And that brings me to a question I saw somebody posted in the comment field. Should I hire my own VA or use a reseller? And there's a real good answer to that question. And the answer is real simple. I have the time to work with and train and hire and do all of the things. And I enjoy hiring. I'm good at hiring, training, and supervising my local staff. So adding another remote staff person is a no-brainer for me. I'm good at that. And if that's the answer, then you should do it. And that means, too, that you probably are the type of person that have written policies and procedures that are clearly defined, showing how our processes should be done. And, if the answer to these questions are, yeah, we're good, we've got this down, or we're scaled. I've got 900 doors. That means if you got to 900 doors, you probably answered those questions well. And hiring your own VAs makes great sense. When you've got 90 doors, most people I talk to don't have that. When you've got 190 or 290 doors, you're struggling to develop that. So this is my thought on the matter. You should hire your own VA if that's what you want to do, because there is a savings. We have a small margin for all of the work we do. And you can attract a savings by doing that. Is it worth it? That's up to you, because I always say I want my time as a business owner to go to the high dollar tasks. I want to earn. I want to create. I don't want to do repetitive tasks that I can give to other people. And so that's my thought process on that.
Yeah, I'll touch on that too. So, at DoorGrow, I run a virtual company. I'm in my house right now, and my entire team is virtual. And the advantage of that is I've been able to pull the best talent from anywhere. Period. I can find the best talent, and I have low overhead, but there are challenges. There's really specific challenges to running a virtual team compared to having people that you can walk into and via SneakerNet into their office and talk to and touch and say, hey, this is how things need to happen. And see,
we do the same thing. We've got over 100 staff that are all over the Philippines. But the truth of the matter is, compared to most resellers, that means that our overhead is lower, our prices are lower, and we're closer to hiring your own VA pricing. And so, there's some definite advantages to doing that versus the high rents that businesses pay.
So in my own business, I do both. I've got agencies that we work with for certain things, and then I have, team members basically that are freelancers, or you might consider outsourced, that we're connected with as well. And it really it depends on what the core focus is. So, for example, for podcast production, I found that doing podcast production, which I was doing initially all of it on my own, was taking me about 4 hours per episode, between doing a recording, going back through and editing it, listening to it, creating show notes, getting it out on media channels, creating the image for it, doing the audio editing, getting it into iTunes. All this stuff was a lot of work. And I have team members on my team that can do graphic design, they can do audio editing, they can do all this stuff. But the second I get my entire team focused on that, which is really a non-direct revenue generating process, right? It's not making us money directly. People aren't paying us to put out podcast episodes. Then I'm taking them all out of our normal process, out of their current wheelhouse, and and shifting their focus towards something else. And that dilutes their focus, and it makes them less effective at the real process that we want to take clients through, that we get paid to do. And so I explored that, but it made a lot more sense to go find a company that their specialty and expertise was podcast production. They've got team members that can handle all of it for me, and they're much faster than I could manage and organize. And so the other thing to keep in mind is entrepreneurs generally make shitty managers. They generally are not the people that are psychologically, profile-wise, geared towards being great at managing people. Like, generally the entrepreneur will walk into the room, say to the team, "Hey everybody, grenade," and walk out of the room and expect everybody to pick up the pieces. And to you thought you just came in with this great new idea. The way the team views it is, "Oh my gosh, Jason just came in and threw another grenade that we're all supposed to figure out. And what are we supposed to do with this?" Right?
Well, it sounds like you've been sitting in my staff meetings if you're talking that way.
And so the entrepreneur, the nice thing about using and leveraging an agency like yours, or like the podcast production company I use, or whatever, where they have a level of expertise, they take that management piece that you naturally, that support system that those team members need in order to thrive, they create that. And generally, you don't have that in your business. Generally, entrepreneurs are not astute, especially if they're small, at doing that. It's just not naturally what we do. And so you're getting that. So even if the price is marginally a little bit higher, the last thing somebody should be thinking with outsourcing is, I'm going to go just with whatever the cheapest option is, simply because I want to save money. Because entrepreneurs, we all should know very clearly that there's other currencies besides money that are far more important. And to me, time is far higher on my priority list than money. Time's a huge one for me. I don't want to work 70 hours a week. I do want to make money, but I want to have time, right? And I want to go back to your talking about that idea of 70 hours a week and that sort of thing. There's this myth that we have as entrepreneurs that if we work harder, there's this myth of hustle and grind that's put out by some of these big, noisy guys on social media that are targeting entrepreneurs. This idea that if I just am more aggressive and hustle more and focus more on just burning myself out, that I'm somehow going to make more money or get more done. And the reality is, once you hit a certain level, in fact, it's been proven that our brains only produce so much chemical while we're sleeping to make a certain amount of decisions for the next day. And most people tap out by, noon, 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon. And if we are really aggressively pushing past that, we become very unproductive. We're not making as effective decisions as we could make. And so usually we have to slow down as entrepreneurs to actually get a bigger result. And that would involve getting things off of our plate, especially the things we don't naturally feel passionate about. Like, I don't feel passionate about writing contracts, right? So I can have a lawyer do that. I don't feel passionate about, per se, about podcast production. That's not like my joy in life. That's not my bliss. So I can give that to someone else. Even graphic design, I don't want to sit in front of Photoshop all day long, even though I can be good at that, but I can bring in somebody that's better at that than me. And so And this is how I believe entrepreneurs need to build teams. But the mistake I think generally entrepreneurs make as they build teams is they build teams around them that make their life tactically more difficult. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Instead of looking to make their life strategically more available.
And to that point, if you'd have told me a few years back that I would have over 100 staff working for me in this business, I'd have been like, man, that's not my forte. I don't manage people that well. And that's a frank acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So, the cool thing about my business is that I scaled. Somehow I made it through. And my wife is amazing. I married a university professor from Manila, and she's very talented and skilled, and she's an awesome people manager. And so, she's grown this team, and she's taking care of the people management side of things so that I can work on the visionary and innovation things, which entrepreneurs love, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm so fortunate and blessed. And it wasn't until I met my people manager that my innovation, my entrepreneurship, my everything else started to shine. And now my people manager is actually helping other property managers manage people for the management company. And it's mind-bending to me what a gift that is, because I realize I'm so filled with gratitude for what a gift it is in my world. Yeah. And when I get to share that with other people, I'm passionate about that, because it was such a deficit in my professional life. My ability to hire, train, motivate the best people was not my forte.
Right.
And now it is, because of my partnership with my wife. And it's just such a great feeling to bring that to other people.
Yeah. And same for me. I can't tell you how many direct executive or personal assistants I've had. And so many of them have been a miss, and some of them have been just amazing. But there's been a lot more misses. And so this time around, I actually am working with an agency that they specialize in just getting, an executive assistant. I'm working with a different agency that just specializes in salespeople to get me a great mm-hmm. salesperson. And that's going really great. Mm-hmm. And so there really is a power in being able to spend more money to leverage somebody else to do that stuff for you, because they're going to do mm-hmm. a much better job. And they've got processes I never even thought about that they're taking me through for both of these roles. On the assistant side, they mm-hmm. have me doing taking some assessments and some quizzes and stuff to find their matchmaking. And,
wow.
And then on the sales side, they've got ways of being pushy and triggering and kind of almost upsetting towards a salesperson to see how they respond and if they're willing to push through natural barriers, right? Mm-hmm. And so they've both have these processes and systems that I never would have imagined or thought to put in place. And
I think you're going to get more follow-up from this podcast from people asking you what those two companies are than I will, because that's fascinating. And how many of us wouldn't love to have a tried and tested executive assistant? I have one, and man, my life is so much better as a result of having someone that keeps me organized in emails and calendar and scheduling and errands and details. And so, yeah, you'll probably get some people asking you about that. And that's the beauty of outsourcing, is we get to focus on our core strengths. And my core strength, I was a trainer for the Property Management Academy in Florida. I used to train hundreds of property managers in the basics in property manager. And I realized one thing when I taught classrooms full of people 8 hours a day. I realized one thing. A lot of people want to enjoy property management, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
And the trick to enjoying property management is to realize that it can be fun and profitable if we decide to pursue profit and pursue fun. But nobody thinks to do that. They all think property management is, God, what a tough job, what a tough gig, what a tough industry. And it's challenging, I get it, but we can make it more fun and profitable if that's our intention. And typically that means pursuing better clients and taking care of growing and scaling a business at a at an affordable rate. And fortunately, you know, I started this in 1985. Mm-hmm. There was no NARPM, the National Association of Residential Property Managers. And I still remember the first meeting I went to, and I was like, you know, the Hallelujah chorus was playing in the background because I was in a room full of other property managers. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, the collective experience in this room is something I can really learn a lot from. And I've spent so much time learning from other managers. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're a learner, you're dialed in, and you're probably an implementer too, because the learners have learned that if I learn something and don't implement it, I've just wasted a little bit of time on a lovely podcast. So, you know, going out and actually learning and then implementing is, in my opinion, the number one skill set that differentiates the truly successful property managers from the average. And those learners and implementers are some people that I can't spend enough time with, because they gas me up, they turn me on, they fill my brain, they challenge me. And, you know, always enjoy talking with people like that. And that's, I think, why you and I get along so well, is we're always, you know, punching through barriers with each other. I love it.
Yeah. You know, entrepreneurs in general, we love to come up with ideas, create things, but we don't generally want to be the one that sees it all the way through to end completion. And that's why we have teams. And that's why teams are so important for us to stay in that area of genius. That's why we need a support system.
You just reminded me, I used to teach an adult ed class called Start Your Small Business Now. And it wasn't about property management. I was just teaching adults who wanted to start a business. And I ran across a bit of information that was astonishing to me. So there's 4 personality types. You've got your spontaneous. They don't make good business owners. You got your competitive. They make good business owners to a point. You got your humanitarians, you know, your Edith Bunkers. These humanitarian people who love everybody, maybe they wouldn't make the best property managers. But then you got your methodicals, your engineering type, the type that have the pocket protectors. They're the ones, you know what I'm saying? These methodicals that have to get everything done. Do you know who makes the best business over the long haul? Which of those 4 types? The methodical. And I never would have guessed that. I would have said, I don't get that. But the SBA, Small Business Administration, did some research, and they found that methodical were the people who stayed in business the longest because they were methodical. They would say, I need to do the following things. And so many of us are competitive, and that's who we are. We're the driving entrepreneurs. We're not necessarily methodical. When I talk with a methodical, I immediately start to understand who I'm talking with, because they're the ones that run a business that's tightly run. I'm not a methodical. I have to it's a learned skill for me to be methodical.
Yeah.
And I hire methodicals, and that's what this whole outsourcing is about, is who has methodically figured out the best processes for doing something, and let's hire them and get them into a process. And so actually, we have 3 methodicals at our company that I work closely with. And they kind of are like, okay, all right, slow down the fire hose of ideas. We have to methodically implement, you know, and if I could go back to my younger self, I would say hire a methodical, and that partnership would take me farther, further, faster than what I did in my journey.
Yeah, and on the reverse, the methodicals generally running businesses, they're those that are not going to be very good at BDM type roles. They're not going to be very good at sales. They're not going to be very good at getting out in the marketplace and growing the business. And so I see property managers that they're more property management entrepreneurs that really are more a property manager, and they identify with that. And their challenge is to give that up as they scale and grow. They have to give up a portion of that to allow other people to do it. So, well, Todd, it's been super cool to have you on. I think we touched on virtual assistants. We touched on staying in your area of genius. And how can people get a hold of you, and what do you think, any final last words or takeaways you think people might want to know about virtual assistants?
Sure. Well, so my son Logan is the sales manager for Virtually Incredible. If you want to learn more about how we can help you, if you write an email to sales at Virtually Incredible, it'll go to Logan and I, and we'll both follow up with you. One of the coolest things we do, we just started doing this recently, is we'll do an evaluation on what you're spending to do the work that we can do with you or for you. And we'll show you a general price idea of what it'll cost you to get it done. And we'll show you how to do the reorganization and what the desired outcome is, and show you how you can reach that. And you know, when you begin outsourcing with that end goal in mind, that I want to hire a BDM, but I don't have 25 grand a year base pay. Well, we'll show you how you can get 25 grand a year out of your current systems, and then go hire your BDM and join the big boy club or the big girl club and get, you know, busy growing your management company. We'd love to talk with you about how we can help you with that. And in the meantime, man, thanks. A special thanks from all of us property managers to you, because your DoorGrow club is just like one of the best things I've been on. If you're not a member, you need to get on it on Facebook. So much great information. I'm learning so much and meeting people there. Thanks for putting that together for us, Jason. It's well done.
The plug. So yeah, you guys can get to that Facebook group by just going to doorgrowclub.com. And we've really had the intention of building the most savvy group of property management entrepreneurs and getting you guys communicating with each other. So yeah, thanks.
Great. Well, I'd love to talk with any of you that even want to just mastermind. And thanks for having me on the show, Jason.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Todd. And make sure you guys reach out to Todd and get inside the DoorGrow Club. If you go into the file section of the DoorGrow Club, we do have a document there where we've made a list of lots of different vendors that you can, and kind of what they're kind of known for, their area of genius. And we're open to feedback on that at any time. And so check that out. You'll see Todd's company, and you'll see several other companies mentioned there. And those things, I think, can really start to help you create some systems and some processes in your business, and and lower your costs, you know, and facilitate that business side, that all the things that you're lacking, that you think only big companies can have. And so yeah, make sure you leverage that. And again, Todd, thanks for hanging out with us late into the early morning, I guess, there in Manila. And we hope to have you back again soon.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks, and have a great day. Okay.
All right. Bye, Todd.
Bye-bye.